Today, I am going to review the movie Bullet Train. The action film Bullet Train frequently feels and appears as though it could have been an animated one. The cityscapes and landscapes that the train careens through are predominantly, if not entirely, miniatures and CGI, and the majority of the film was shot on green screen sets. The story centers on a bullet train speeding through Japan. The bulk of its key characters are trying to escape the repercussions of their acts because they either have resentments toward one or more of the other characters or are the object of resentment. Additionally, all of its key characters are intentionally and somewhat abstract and comic book-like. They are all hired murderers or violent people with ties to organized crime. The majority of them are chatterboxes who will babble at anyone who doesn't point a gun at their head and ask them to stop up, and the tone mixes winking black comedy and poker-faced pulp. As is inevitable 30 years after the great Tarantino realignment of the early 1990s. Usually, they come from terrible, emotional backgrounds or are just outright evil. Ladybug's fellow murderers are a bomber crew of homicidal oddballs. Joey King is the prince, a crafty and ruthless agent of destruction who initially assumes the form of a defenseless young woman terrified by the savagery of men. Brian, currently on the train guarding the briefcase and escorting the depressed 20-something wastrel son of a terrifying crime boss known as the White Death, are brothers Tyree Henry and Aaron Taylor Johnson, who have been on numerous missions and amassed a body count that appears to be in the triple digits. Aaron Taylor Johnson has had his hair and makeup done to resemble the depraved, inebriated Begbie from the first train spotting the White Death. A Russian took over a Yakuza family. Because his casting is one of the story's best surprises, the audience will enjoy themselves more if they can resist the desire to check up the actor who plays him online. The final scene is when his face is revealed. They believe the perpetrator of pushing the elder's grandson over a department store roof and into a coma is on the train with all the other wreckage, which is why they are on it. Hiroyuki Sanada is known as the Elder, a grizzled but deadly assassin associated with the White Death, while Andrew Koji is known as the Father, presumably the Elder's father. The plot initially seems to be goal-based, with the comatose grandchild and the metal briefcase as its focal elements. The movie makes a clumsy but earnest message about fate, luck, and karma while also introducing new warriors and establishing that they're all somehow associated with the White Death. In chats with a handler, Ladybug repeatedly makes amusingly unpleasant remarks about these subjects that start to feel like a roadmap for what the movie really intends to accomplish. Filmmakers like Guy Ritchie and Quentin Tarantino are remembered by genre aficionados for using font on screen followed by flashback montage to establish characters. The contestants trade blows while armed with firearms, knives, fists, and everything else they can get their hands on. They joke around while engaged in combat. And when one of them passes away, the tone periodically changes to a maudlin lament that is occasionally moving due to the brilliance of the ensemble, but it doesn't elicit strong emotion because the remainder of the film is so stupid and absurd. The movie's director is David Leitch, a former stunt coordinator and screen double for Brad Pitt and Jean-Claude Van Damme. He has established himself as a specialist in high-grade acrobatic mayhem with the first John Wick, Deadpool 2, Atomic Blonde, and Nobody. It's indisputable that he's one of the best directors working today at this type of movie. And it may be hilarious to see Bullet Train embrace its produced, purposefully ludicrous sights that occasionally border on the psychedelia suggested by Speed Race. Another concern is whether a project of this kind is truly worthwhile. In an attempt to make us feel the character's pain while simultaneously reminding us that this is all light and ludicrous and none of it is of any consequence, it tries to choke us with a moment of tremendous dramatic strength. The brothers' love for one another, which is apparent even when they are verbally abusing one another, as well as the two actors' engaging performances, despite having Cockney accents that might not be appropriate for a college production of My Fair Lady, are the reasons why Henry and Johnson's story succeeds. However, the remainder seems a little forced. The movie is at its best when it's a comedy about self-styled badasses who mistakenly think they are free agents when they are actually just passengers on a train racing from station to station, largely unconscious of the desires of anyone seated on it. The abstractness and its all-lark comedy finally remove any element that would have otherwise taken hold in the viewer's imagination. because the characters were Japanese and the script was based on a Keiichi Asaka novel. It is abstract in another way as well. After taking over the project from Antoine Fuqua, who had wanted to produce a less lighthearted movie, Leitch and colleagues rebuilt the plot internationally, starting with Leitch's longtime on-screen partner Pitt, even though they had reportedly considered shifting Bullet Train to Europe. They have justified their choice to keep the Japanese setting because it is a fantasy film that might be set anywhere and is effectively taking place nowhere. The argument doesn't really hold up when you consider how dependent Bullet Train is on Japanese symbols and cultural attitudes, and how the main characters, aside from a small group of Yakuza, have been essentially deracinated, save for a Russian chieftain who is obviously based on Kisersos from The Usual Suspects. Even in a fantasy, the latter seems ridiculous, despite the actor's excellent rendition of it. If nothing in the movie is real, why not just go full Speed Racer or The Matrix with it and declare the production as green screen, either as an excuse for the casting or as a driving aesthetic? The result might have been a crazy work of art rather than a technically and logistically difficult picture that is consistently compelling but leaves little of an emotional or intellectual effect.